Well. It looks like that worst case scenario we discussed yesterday wasn't as far out there as we might have hoped. Get ready. This is probably an important one. Let's go. It's an age-old debate whether the incompetent or the malicious are the more dangerous. But today we might have found out that the most dangerous thing is a combination of them both. Our little crypto world might be about to get turned upside down. Here it is, guys. Here is the weapon of destruction that could change everything. To be clear, this is just a bill. So there are a couple potential futures out there, but in a future where this bill gets passed as is, everything changes. This is a bill that's been introduced in the House of Representatives called the Digital Asset Market Structure and Investor Protection Act. They always sound so innocent, don't they? Here is one of the horsemen of your crypto apocalypse, Don Beyer of Virginia. Congressman Don Beyer introduced this bill, which is basically the foundations, at least, for a comprehensive framework for crypto regulation. None of what we're about to discuss should be shocking at all to listeners of this channel. For weeks and months, we have talked about almost everything that's in this bill. Congressman Don Beyer gets right to it, letting you know our laws are behind the times, and my bill would start the long overdue process of updating them to give digital asset holders and investors basic protections. It's all to protect you guys. It's all about protecting you, the crypto holders. I have a strange feeling that crypto holders are not going to feel like the main thrust of this bill is to protect them. They're going to feel like there's some thrusting going on, but not the protective kind. So they want to do exactly what we thought they were going to do. We even talked about this in the video yesterday. Very first bullet point. They're going to divide the world of crypto into digital assets and digital asset securities. The SEC will be over digital asset securities. The CFTC will be over everything else that's a digital asset. And when I say everything else, I mean pretty much everything else, because this bill also provides that the CFTC and the SEC have to get together shortly after passage of the bill, and they have to divide up the world. And when they say world, they mean the top 90% of the digital asset market by market cap and trading volume. So they're going to go through the old CMC or CoinGecko list, and the top 90% of digital assets in the crypto world are going to be divided up in terms of them being digital asset securities or digital assets. SEC is going to take the securities, CFTC takes everything else. Think about that. 90% of the world, the crypto world, by market cap or trading volume. We're going to jump right into the bill and look at exactly how this will happen. So the bill says not later than 150 days after the date of the enactment of this section, the commission, that's a reference to the SEC, and the CFTC are going to get together and jointly publish, for purposes of a 60-day public comment period, a proposed rulemaking that classifies each of the major digital assets, we'll get to the definition of that term, by market cap and trading volume as either a digital asset or a digital asset security. Not later than 270 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Commission, the SEC, and the CFTC shall jointly publish a final rule that classifies each of the major digital assets, again, by market cap and daily trading volume as a digital asset or digital asset security. And then they tell us exactly what they mean by digital assets. In this subsection, the term major digital assets means the top 25 digital assets, including digital asset securities by market cap and trading volume. That's characterized in other places as the top 90%. Maybe that's right. Maybe there's some adjustment to this number before this bill's passed. This language can be modified, but this is what the bill looks like right now. As a hilarious side note, it's worth noticing that they're going to determine these 25 largest digital assets via CoinMarketCap. I'm not sure if the staffers who wrote this bill are aware that the DOJ is heavily after Binance, who last time I checked owned CoinMarketCap. Here's one that was a little less predictable. require digital asset transactions that are not recorded on the publicly distributed ledger to be reported to a registered digital asset trade repository within 24 hours to minimize the potential for fraud and promote transparency. They do not want anybody trading any digital assets and it not ending up on the publicly available ledgers. So next up, we have explicitly add digital assets and digital asset securities to the statutory definition. So basically everything to the statutory definition of monetary instruments under the Bank Secrecy Act. You guys know what the Bank Secrecy Act does. It does all the AML, KYC stuff, all the anti-money laundering stuff that requires all the know your customer record keeping, all the data you have to provide to all the exchanges. That's Bank Secrecy Act. If it was not obvious to you that we're going to have a U.S. federal CBDC, here you go. Provide the Federal Reserve with explicit authority to issue a digital version of the U.S. dollar. And that's not all. They're also going to clarify that digital asset securities, and fiat-based stablecoins are not U.S. legal tender. Further, they're going to give the U.S. Treasury the authority to permit, or probably more importantly, prohibit US dollar and other fiat-based stablecoins. There you go. We've talked about it for months. They're going to give the Treasury the ability to prohibit stablecoins. Big problem for a lot of DeFi projects. Next up, they're going to have the FDIC make it clear to all consumers that there may not be coverage, any backstop for any kind of digital assets, the way you'd have FDIC insurance for a lot of bank deposits. Finally, they're going to ask for legislative recommendations from FinCen, the SEC, and the CFTC. FinCen's over a lot of AML stuff, to provide clarity on dividing lines between who must register. And here they're going to give us the three big categories for crypto. Who must register as a money services business? That would fall under FinCen and have to comply with all the AML stuff. Or a securities, SEC, or commodities, CFTC exchange. So if you're a crypto business, you're going to have to look at, if this bill passes, the legislature, the Congress, is going to ask FinCen, the SEC, and CFTC to create lines that divide up the world of crypto businesses into money services businesses under FinCen, securities businesses under the SEC, or commodities businesses under the CFTC. Then those are going to be the three big areas of things like licensure and compliance, all that stuff that exists in the legacy system. As you can see, this is what's being described here is a world of rules, and those rules are made up of definitions. And the important definitions here are going to be whether you are a digital asset that falls under the CFTC, a digital asset security that falls under the SEC, a stable coin, which can be banned by the US Treasury, a CBDC, which will be put into effect by the Federal Reserve, or a money services business that will have to answer to FinCen. These are early days. So there are probably going to be, I said all crypto businesses, but really there are going to be little types of crypto niches. There are going to be businesses that fit into these niches that maybe aren't money services businesses, maybe aren't securities or commodities exchanges. There are going to be businesses that are related to crypto to varying degrees that maybe don't fall within those three. But a lot of the things in crypto that we think about, especially in DeFi, are probably going to fall within one of those three definitions. I think it's going to be a really big question whether or not any particular DEX falls into the definition of securities exchange, commodities exchange, and of course they're going to be saying they don't fall under either one. A lot of other crypto businesses that are doing other things where they're not necessarily a securities or commodities exchange, they're going to be trying really hard not to fall within this definition of money services business. But FinCen, the SEC, and the CFTC have been doing this for a long time, and the definitions of those things, those labels, are always pretty broadly drafted. So they pull in a wide variety of different types of entities. So it's going to be There are going to be a lot of battles. A lot of crypto businesses are going to be trying really hard not to fall into one of these categories. And a lot of them are going to be deemed to fall within one of these categories. And a lot of it's not even going to depend on the activities of the particular business. A lot of it's going to depend on what they're dealing in. Are they dealing in one of these digital asset securities, a digital asset, or even a stable coin? I mean, that stablecoin thing is going to affect a lot of crypto DeFi. Apparently, this bill is just going to provide the regulatory authority to the US Treasury to permit or prohibit stablecoins. So they might decide to have some kind of big licensure and compliance regime. You know, usually what I would expect in that case, what I would expect is that only the only players who can get through that kind of process are the ones that the crypto space is less comfortable with and the legacy system is much more comfortable with. These would be the kinds of very, very legacy system, cozy entities. Or we could have the Treasury just completely prohibit all stablecoins. They're being given the authority in this bill. They're being given the authority to prohibit stablecoins. So they could just come around and say no stablecoins, or we could end up with stablecoins, but if you can get the license, but the licenses only end up going to crypto-ish entities that are partially owned by Goldman Sachs, that kind of thing. This is pretty gnarly. But it's not the only thing going on in Washington we should be concerned with right now. And in fact, it was a little bit like there was a bit of congressional sleight of hand going on. There was another bill that got a lot more coverage that had to do with crypto. And I think it sort of distracted everyone, so they maybe didn't notice this one as much. There is also a completely separate draft of a bill on the $1 trillion gigantic infrastructure deal that's received some level of bipartisan support. So when you have a $1 trillion infrastructure deal, you need to figure out how to pay for it. And what's going on is that they figured out that over the course of something like a decade, they might be able to raise $28 billion by making sure those crypto rascals actually pay their taxes. I'm thinking of the adjective that like a septuagenarian, congressman would use to describe us. I'm sure they'd call us like crypto rascals, something like that. So it all sounds very innocent again, because they're thinking of taxes that are actually already owed by law. If you make money on crypto, you have to pay taxes on it. That's the way it works. What they want to do is, and this was all language that was tacked on at the last minute. This is brand new language that was kind of tacked on at the last minute, and it's been described as hastily crafted. Down here in this Market Watch article, you can see it's being called skillfully crafted or maliciously ignorant. One of those two. But basically what we got is an attempt to create reporting so that unreported income can be collected by the IRS. All the reports on this are about a draft copy of this bill that various media outlets have been able to get their hands on, but it's characterized here as requiring any person who regularly provides a service that executes transfers of digital assets to report those transactions to the IRS. And it would also require businesses to report digital asset transactions of more than 10K. We kind of expect that. We know that there's a 10K reporting threshold on cash transactions. And I think it was pretty obvious to everybody that you'd have to report crypto transactions over 10K. The more concerning part is this part where it says that if you were a person could be a corporation or other corporate entity, right? Or a person, a natural person. Any person who regularly provides a service that executes transfers of digital assets. If you fall into that category, then you must report those transactions to the IRS. That is problematic for us in the crypto space. CoinDesk quoted Kristen Smith, executive director of the Blockchain Association, as saying, "We interpret this to mean software wallet developers, hardware wallet manufacturers, multi-sig service providers, liquidity providers, DAO token holders, and potentially even miners." This is obviously problematic. Miners, in essence, are just block validators, just like stake pool operators are. And they also mentioned hardware wallet manufacturers, even. These are three categories of actors in the crypto space who don't have access to the data that would be required to be reported to the IRS. Hardware manufacturers, Ledger, Trezor, they don't know what transactions I have going on in my wallet. And miners or mining pools and stake pool operators, they don't have any kind of data except for maybe some kind of public address. This is the wild worst case, edge case, Congress has gone completely out of their minds scenario we described yesterday, where block validators would have to KYC their customers somehow, even though that's not currently built into the systems. Luckily, everybody in crypto is instantly realizing this. You'll remember Jerry Brito from the Senate hearings we covered yesterday from Coin Center. He says, "We've been engaged with the relevant staff who worked on this over the past few months, but the problem is that this language was a last-minute addition to a must-pass bill. The categories of persons who would be obligated to report is so broad that it potentially covers persons who only provide software or hardware to customers and who have no visibility whatsoever into user transactions." He says, "We worked all day yesterday trying to fix this and will continue to do so today. Stay tuned." But he also provides kind of a little ray of hope. He says, "It potentially also covers miners and dexes. The saving grace is that arguably miners and dexes, for that matter, do not have customers as defined in the tax code." Who knows how all that's going to turn out? Hopefully this language gets fixed. But what we do know for sure is that we're seeing a coordinated effort in both the House and the Senate to create a comprehensive regulatory framework for crypto. We don't know what the final form of these bills is going to look like, what language will get modified, or even what will end up getting passed. What we do know is that something is happening right now. Over the last couple of weeks, just the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Senate, the House, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Federal Reserve. They've all been involved in this thing that's ramping up. And that thing is going to be regulation coming to crypto. This is probably the beginning of what will amount to an end of the golden era of crypto, or put more derogatorily, maybe the Wild West era of crypto. It looks like this is the beginning of the end of all that. We're going to enter a new era of crypto, and a lot of projects probably won't survive. The ones that will survive are the ones that can adapt themselves to a regulated environment. I think that's going to involve digital identity, and because identity is required to KYC yourself. And there are probably less sophisticated ways to KYC yourself for a lot of crypto functions. But I think digital identity is going to play an important role in this. And I don't know if anybody is as far along on this as Cardano is. So Cardano obviously is going to be included in that list of the 25 top assets, which has been sort of alternately defined as the top 90% in terms of market cap and trading volume. We don't know how all that's going to work out, but Cardano as the number 5 project is going to be included. And I think among those projects, there are probably a lot of projects that aren't going to be able to adapt to this new regulatory environment very well. I think Cardano maybe is the best prepared to adapt to this new environment. There's an important point here for those projects that don't fall in that top 25, that top 90%. What they're saying is that we'll have a little bit of regulatory certainty as to that top 90%, as to that top 25 projects. They're not saying that you fall outside of the regulatory framework if you're not in the top 25. They're just saying they're not going to require the SEC or the CFTC to give you any regulatory certainty. So if you're not in that top 25, they might not tell, if you're a smaller project, like probably a lot of DeFi projects, they're not going to tell you, hey, we think you're a security. We think you're a security that falls under the SEC, or we think you're not a security, but you still fall under the CFTC. You just won't know. And if you deal with stable coins, the Treasury might come along and outlaw whatever stable coins you're dealing with. The FinCen might come along and say you're a money services business and you have to do all this AML KYC stuff that makes your customers not want to deal with you anymore. So this is going to affect the entire crypto space, but it's going to be a whole new era of crypto. I think we have to prepare ourselves to enter the regulated era of crypto, which is going to be very different. A lot of people will think it's less fun, but it's probably the only way we ever get to mainstream adoption. This is going to be different and interesting. Talk to you tomorrow.